All right, everybody. This is August 23rd, 2023. This is Web 3x3, episode 42, a new business model for social media. This week, we're going to be discussing a potential new social media business model in Web3 style, the stunning story of FriendTech, a new DeSo platform, and we will discuss how the social media industry is changing and potentially whether we're coming out of this crypto winter. I am joined this week by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Welcome back.
And as you guys can attest, our first time together in, is it 3 weeks, guys?
Yes, it's 3 weeks. And just for the record, we're just putting it here because it's recorded that you're actually not allowed to go away for 3 weeks again with no Wi-Fi. Okay, so
those who care, I was in a 3-week RV trip across the Western United States with my family. And while it was amazing, Yellowstone and Redwoods National, try living 3 weeks in a box with your family.
Oh, the joy.
Oh, the joy.
Did they take their PlayStations? That's what I want to know.
No, there was no Wi-Fi. So
can't you play games on it? Oh, I suppose everything's online these days.
They are only online. It's fun. The kids these days are like, yeah, Dad couldn't care less. By the way, I went to the Museum of Computer History, showed them Pac-Man and Pong. They were like, what is this?
Perfect.
All right. Story number one.
The Dark Ages, Dad.
Definitely the Dark Ages. This comes to us via Cointelegraph. FriendTech generates over $1 million in 24 hours, surpassing Uniswap and Bitcoin networks. So in a nutshell, FriendTech is a new decentralized social platform. It's a new network. It allows users to tokenize their social network by buying and selling shares of connections. We'll revisit that in a second. So basically, folks who buy these shares can then send private messages to the folks in that other person's network. So this has sparked discussion of the revenue model of how social works. This new DeSo platform has generated $1 million in fees in 24 hours. This outperforms Uniswap, Bitcoin Network, and others. So this is something to watch, whether or not you agree with it. We'll discuss the details, but I'm going to let Michelle lead us through this conversation. Michelle, please.
So Mike and I were actually going to start talking about this last week and didn't get to it because we had to finish a little bit earlier. And it's good that you're back because I think that we can have, really break this app thing, I don't know what you want to call it, social platform down for the people listening and really start to talk about it. There are so many things I think to unpack with it. The first thing being, is it really Web3, which I'm sure Mike is going to talk about too. What is it that they're doing? There's no roadmap. What's the long-term game plan with this? Like, is this the ultimate? Is it going to be the ultimate rug pull? At the end of it, the amount of money we're talking about, people are putting in things. After I think maybe 2 days ago, my husband John got an invite, and I'm like, oh, quick, yes, use it because we're going to talk about it this week. Really want to, sign up and whatever. Now, he's been in crypto since 2016, 17. And it was like 4 steps before he got to the point where he had to add ETH. And at that particular moment, we were having breakfast in bed. And he said, oh, I've got to, get my other wallet and da-da-da. And then we just forgot about it. But he didn't think it was that easy to actually sign up. So he's wondering how it is that people that aren't necessarily crypto native, because he knows a lot about this stuff, are going to be able to onboard like this. That said, I think they've sort of talked about 100,000 odd users, which isn't really a lot. And, I don't know. I want to hear what Mike says, but I'm a bit suspicious. We can talk about the different aspects of it, but let's have a general discussion first and then break down some things.
Mike, thoughts?
So I see a scenario like this, an article, a situation that kind of is the new hot thing. And it makes me question if people really want to just get screwed over. Is there an appetite for that? Is there a desire for it? Is there a social status that says I was a part of the thing that screwed everybody over?
How are they getting screwed over, Mike, potentially?
I mean, I look at this and, and you brought up video games earlier, so I'll reference that. Back in the day, you'd play all these games and your parents would say, you'll never amount to anything if you keep playing those games. Well, now they have e-gamers that are making millions, right? So I've gone to war with major marketing companies because they used to tout, well, we'll get you X amount of likes on your posts. And my response to that as a business guy is, well, likes don't pay my bills. Well, now I guess they could. You know, you're able to invest into the engagement of somebody's post and then re-engage with them. So the whole thing to me is it's sort of upside down, but we've brought this up before when we bash on the social platforms and the monsters that they've become. They feed into people's addiction for affirmation. And now you're actually monetizing that now too, right? So where does this end up? God only knows. I don't have high expectations for it. I'm really not convinced it's 100% Web3. They might token it. They might tokenize it. But at the end, what's it built on? How is it a community-led ordeal? How is it possible that you're going to be able to prevent bots from going out and, I guess, investing into people's comments and likes to drive up the revenue share of that? And therefore create a higher demand, which would ultimately, I guess, be similar to insider trading on a stock.
So I'm going to say two things. Number one, you raise a good point. What is the definition of Web3? Web3, in the case of this app, FriendTech, is simply having a token. Your argument, Mike, I'm sure, is that community has to come first. And of course, I would agree with that. But the second part I'll take issue with, you mentioned it's a desire for affirmation. I think it's a desire of monetization. These are people who can now make money off of their social network. So I view this as a pure sales tactic more than anything else. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see how this is how it's going to go. It's like it's in the same category as how technology always develops in the porn industry first. That's what people want. Like this, people want to make money from their social medias.
Well, they
So
have.
I heard. Sorry,
this is just an additional piece of that. Go ahead, Michelle.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was listening to, I think it's CoinDesk, who do a show, you know, they do something like what we're doing now. And they were talking about it, and they said, one of the women said, is this OnlyFans but for blokes? So all the men on Twitter who have large followings are now able to create similar to an OnlyFans account. In terms of, you know, people hanging out with them, and no doubt they'll talk about, you know, manly things like being at the gym and lifting weights and whatever. I don't know. One of the problems I have, I mean, you're right, Mike. Like, for example, it's not your wallet that you create your account on. So there's no self-custody. So immediately, what does that tell us for things in Web3 previously that have been like that?
But isn't that how Web3 is going to develop? I mean, I'm being a realist here. People, I agree. It should be, you have your wallet. It's all community driven. Right now, it's all been money grabs. That's all we've seen. And so,
Sure.
Well, I would push back heavily on that. That's not all we've seen.
Maybe
there are
not.
still a lot of good that has been coming from this technology, and a lot of use cases that use, you know, I guess self-controlled wallet systems in order to operate their projects. However, the custodial side of things, I would debate you on this, is not the way that this is going to evolve. I think that at first it will become a custodial, but ownership will lie just the same as you own your phone number or you own your email address.
But
These
do you?
might, well, that's just it. Do you is a key question. Your email address lives on a platform, on a server in some warehouse somewhere, right? It could theoretically be accessed by anyone at any time who has access keys to it. The difference with the wallet is that it could start out that way, and then it could evolve into, well, now I move it from that server into my server, and I control it, and I'm able to pull those elements off. And this is really the first step. So when we talk about the easy way to onboard the masses, I would argue that, you know, having the wallets incorporated on hardware, phones, computers, that is going to be a massive first step rather than custodial elements, because the custodial side of things, it's gonna get lost in the wind. It's just too easy. Most people are just basically using it as a CRM to capture people's emails to accommodate other forms of their business, which is fine, but it's not Web3, right? It's just using the guise of Web3 in order to push forth whatever they're trying to promote. In this case, likes and engagement.
I think there's two aspects to this, Mike. There's the custodial structure of how you access the information. Let's call it your wallet, whatever your social network is called. But let's just say there's the who owns it and who can control it. Yes, that's very Web3. And then there's the Web2 aspect of there's a social network, and this is a new way for people to make money from their social network. Web3 aside, that's going to drive this process forward. That's why they've made $1 million in 24 hours. It's not that people want to gain Web3, it's that people want to make money.
And it's the social platform of the week that came out that's monetizable, right? I mean, like these things pop up all over the place. And, you know, the first, you know, you mentioned porn stars and, you know, like that's really the driving force. In social media, the driving force is influencers. People who dry up on certain platforms that need to migrate an audience or create an audience use this fresh new platform as a means to try to do that. They try to make a living off of, you know, putting that camera on the floor and showing themselves lift weights at the gym, you know, doing squats and showing off your ass. Like, you know, these are all things that people thrive on with these new platforms. And now it's just a difference in monetization. You're not worried about advertisers or viewership in order to get you those dollars. Now they can actually pay you directly.
Michelle,
so I think it's important that if for people that haven't looked, and I'll put the article that we're talking about now in the chat. We've got a couple of others as well, but I forgot about that. Sorry. But people have to pay 0.01 ETH to join. So that's around, you know, $13 or $14 or so. At the moment, I think, no, actually, it might be $10. $10, it's £13 or something like that. And then what happens is you buy what originally they called shares in your favorite influencer, which they have now changed to keys because I think that the Fed chair scared them. He must have looked at them with his angry eyes or something. And so they changed it. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about that, Mark. So that's how they make their money. And then by buying the shares keys, the price of that particular person, say if it was me and, you know, more people come on board, the price of being in my circle rises up. And some of them, there's a couple of them that have been as much as $5,000 for one.
Can you see how you can easily manipulate this though?
Oh, of course. Oh my goodness. As I said before, there's going to be lots of discussion about this. I actually think it's entirely being manipulated at the moment. The numbers are so small that you could have created an AI bot to do this.
That's my point, right? So that's a lot what Web3 is. It's creating these automated processes in order to execute these functions automated, like autonomously, right? So like you're not sitting there at a computer pushing buttons and trying to like and invest and do all these things. Like that's really what NFTs were essentially designed to do. They were designed to execute these particular functions within a given smart contract. So yeah, the likelihood of market manipulation and I guess creating these systems that creates that hype and that FOMO, and this relates to the way I started my comments on this whole thing. It's just another excuse and another way for people to ultimately want to get screwed over here.
So let me touch on the financial structure for folks listening. The way this system is going to work, FriendTech has built it. It is 5% flat fee for the protocol. So FriendTech gets 5% of every transaction. It costs, as you say, Michelle, 1%, 1 ETH to join.
0.01.
0.01. Right. Thank you.
Yep.
So what I'm thinking of is, I mean, I can literally sell you two up the river in this with this kind of a setup. You can take your connections in your network, monetize it in a way that makes everyone saleable. I don't really like the concept of, as a user of the platform, I'm now cognizant whose network am I in where I'm susceptible to being sold. So it makes me rethink twice before I accept someone's. I want to know for sure I'm not going to be sold as some marketing thing because I'm friends with so-and-so.
So let's liken this to something that we can all understand. So a concert comes out. I know someone, I have a friend who absolutely adores Keith Urban. Every time he comes to Australia, she always buys the VIP experience ticket. So she gets a photo with him. She's in the green room before the concert or whatever. Okay. So part of me thinks that what people are doing here is they're buying that equivalent to that concert ticket, because what they've been sold is you can be in a private chat, you can, hang out on Zoom, you can whatever, like I think Taylor Swift a couple of years ago did a thing where people, had a barbecue at her house or something. I don't know. Maybe it was during COVID, so it was on Zoom. I'm not sure. I don't really remember the circumstances, but the excitement over something like that. So this is what I think people are going, oh my goodness, I might be able to, have lunch with Gary Vee just by buying one of these shares because he's going to have a private group or whatever. Are they going to come, like, are the people who are the social influencers actually going to come through with whatever it is they may or may not be promising people? That's the thing that gets me the most. Like, I just can see that it can be manipulated so much, like the hype and all of that. It just makes me feel bad.
This is a social engineered NFT. That's all it is.
It's not an
right?
NFT though, Mike.
I get it, but in the concept I'm talking, right? It's something that you pay to gain access to. It's the cool kids club, right?
It's a community.
And it's more of an audience that you're trying to sell to turn into a community. It's a bot community.
It's an audience that you sell to turn into someone else's community.
Well, however it plays out, again, the foundational pieces have all been in place from some of these big tech players for years, right? And again, I referenced the little thumbs up from Facebook. That little thing has created such a psychological addiction for people to post something, go back to their phone and see how many little thumbs up they got. And then an hour later, they wake up in the middle of the night, they check their phone to see how many thumbs up they got. There are addictive components to the social side of this that now they're introducing monetization. This only will lead to like severe trouble and people getting screwed at the end of the day.
So I think if I'm a large influencer already, I don't want to be on this platform because I know that I'm going to be manipulated.
Again, for me, I look at this as the wheel being reinvented. Right? Clubhouse existed. There was, celebrities and stuff that popped into clubhouse chats and people didn't expect. And they were all like, oh, I was in and I talked to blah, blah, blah. So, now you have a chance to buy into that particular network. How authentic is it really going to be?
Right. So before we go.
Sabretooth on Bolt has asked us a question. Why couldn't the Star provide direct access to themselves? Why would you use this? And that's kind of what you said about, if I was a big influencer, you said, Mark, why would you go on it? Well, maybe you wouldn't.
I agree with Sabretooth 100%. I feel like this knowing my community is going to be monetized, especially if I really care about my community. If I'm Taylor Swift, by the way, Keith Urban was born in New Zealand. Just wanted to let you know that. If I
and when he was touring Australia.
If I'm actually really caring about my community, I don't want to be on a platform where my people are going to be sold like chess pieces. And
okay, so
go ahead.
Blue Skies asked a great question here. What is the end game?
Right.
Well, they
right now
do not have a roadmap. They don't have a roadmap. They don't have any kind of privacy policy, or so that you don't know what they're doing with the data. It's all smoke and mirrors.
So I'll tell you what my opinion is on what the next steps are going to be, and especially if they haven't gone that way in creating that sort of business plan. I think that this just leads to data being repurposed, resold for advertisers.
Right. The founder of FriendTech, I forgot his name, it's in the article, has been tied to, this is not his first project. This is the third or fourth one. Several have failed. He's an NFT guy who has launched a lot of platforms quickly, and this one is taken, or so it seems. So it doesn't surprise me there's no roadmap. Not having a roadmap is concerning. I mean, you can argue the roadmap is just a piece of paper, quote unquote. But when you have like a Gary Vee or someone up front who's talking the long game, you need a leader in an NFT led community. That's Web3 is about building community. Someone's got to be the flag waver.
So this uses your Twitter account. So if you're if you join, and then you can follow people that you follow on Twitter and stuff like that. So or X, whatever it's called now. So do you think that maybe this is a way in which larger accounts on Twitter may be looking for ways to have somewhere else in case Twitter falls over?
First of all, I don't think Twitter will fall over, but that's another conversation. I think that if you're on X/Twitter and you've got a large following, they're going to be filleted like salmon if you go into a platform like FriendTech. Is that what you want?
Well, Twitter, X, whatever, they've already started that monetization for engagement as well.
Yeah.
Not to the point where other people could just buy your followers.
No,
I understand that, but that wheel is in motion, right? So again, you talk about this platform that has already the foundational pieces of success and engagement, and now you're going to try to migrate people off of that onto this other platform as a way to monetize into your content. I mean, again, like the influencer route must be salivating at this.
So I hate to say this. The realist of me is saying this, Mike. The part of this platform that everyone here is railing against is what's going to push Web3 forward in a bad way. Being able to make money from a community is what people are looking for. Now, that is not the spirit of Web3. That is not the spirit of this show. But that is what we're seeing out there right now.
And again, it's history repeating itself. We saw this play out at the peak of the NFT craze, right? All of these crazy projects that came in and people were, being sold a bag of goods, and ultimately it was a rug, whether it was somebody famous, whether it was somebody that just was really good at marketing on Twitter. But people were buying the access and the ability to be in the cool kids club. And this is where I think that people, again, have the desire to want to get screwed over because their addictions are feeding themselves right back into that same process.
I want to touch on something that, Michelle, you referenced about FriendTech renaming their token. There was an article off of Decrypt, which if you could drop when you get a chance, Michelle.
Yep, I'm dropping that.
Regulatory red flags immediately. As soon as they came forward, FriendTech, and had these quote-unquote shares that you could buy, which represented your community members, they were getting regulatory attention they did not want. So there's an ongoing debate. It's focused in the United States, but it's global, whether digital assets are separate from traditional securities. You can argue it both ways, and we have our own opinions here, but right now it's unclear. So when you call something a share, which is what FriendTech did, immediately they're in the SEC's crosshairs in America. So they changed it a day or two later to keys. You can buy these keys. It's the key to your community you're selling, basically. And so essentially someone can give money, buy keys into your followers, and now message them directly, which, by the way, may not reflect well on you. All right. So I think we know where we stand on that. My thoughts on that one real fast. I think that anyone that's going to mess around with a potential share / the financial end, let's call it, of Web3 is going to have a hard time. Right now, the reason the big companies are shying away from Web3 and continue to remain in the outskirts, you're starting to see like BlackRock has now, the ETFs. You're starting to see some outskirts of investment. But for the most part, to dive right in and call it shares was a stupid move. I think that you have technologists who don't understand the financial end of this. There's a whole big world of finance that Web3 steps on. And frankly, as a former finance guy, I'm in favor of that. However, there's a lot of pushback at the government level that comes with that.
But how stupid are they? Like, have they not been like this, like from when Kim Kardashian got fined, for goodness sake, which we talked about, nearly a year ago? Have they been living under a rock that they haven't?
But that's it, though. This is now, I'm going to broad brush all technologists and everyone's going to hate me. But
cover your ears, Marc.
Buckle up. The thought process for most of these technology, big tech, I'm talking in Silicon Valley, is we can make it better with technology. They don't give a secondary thought to the fact of what in the industry impact, the realism of life is when you impact someone else's ability to make money, especially if they're a powerful interest, there's going to be pushback. They don't give that any thought. So good or bad, they've done that. They've stepped on a hornet's nest here by calling it shares. The SEC, I'm sure, it was a phone call immediately made because they changed that awfully fast, and they're making a lot of money. So they're not going to muck with something making money like that.
I was about to say, and as soon as they realized that it was actually a go and they were going to make something out of it, they needed to backpedal pretty quick, didn't they?
So it lends credence to Mike's theory, in my opinion, of potential rug. When you've got $1 million in 24 hours, you're going to milk this baby, and you're going to change whatever you need to change to keep the engine running. What is the long-term plan? That's what, if I were an investor or if I were looking to buy shares for keys, I'd be thinking to myself, what is there? I want to see podcast interviews and conversations with the founders.
Well,
Just me.
Again, history repeating itself, right? In the hype of, or the peak of the NFT craze, there was just a bunch of kids that ultimately landed millions of dollars in a matter of minutes, right? They didn't have a business plan. They didn't have anything other than the ability to post certain things on Twitter and build something up as far as, seeding into something that already was red hot in the fire. I think that this is no different. And you're right. When you mention things like shares and when you start stepping in that puddle, you are going to draw attention in a way that you better be ready for. And it sounds like they weren't ready for it. I don't know how the digital assets really fits into the conversations of securities, though. Every security is a digital asset today. In fact, if you actually wanted a stock certificate, that's a whole other element, and mostly it's for novelty purposes.
You got to buy them to frame them these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Starbucks card, airline miles, are those digital assets?
Starbucks card, airline miles, are they assets?
If I get my Dunkin' Donuts coffee card, I can buy my 7 coffees, get the 8th one free. Is that a digital asset?
No, it's a physical one. You hold it.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't even really call it an asset. It's a rewards platform. What if I've got the app
on my phone?
Airline miles?
I wouldn't even really consider that an asset. Those are reward platforms.
Hold on a second. The airline companies make more money from their airline miles than they do from ticket sales.
Yeah.
For people buying miles?
No,
or
for issuing
collaborative.
Like United Airlines has so much money on lock because same with Starbucks. I think it's $8 billion or something.
Most of that is collaborative efforts with other companies.
But
right.
That
so
means that's
MasterCard will team up with American Airlines and they'll issue American Airline miles for every dollar you spend with MasterCard. Has nothing to do with the consumer.
No,
so
but
is
it's
that
on
an
their
asset?
balance sheet.
Is it an asset for me and a debt for them? Because in theory, they have to pay that at some point if I redeem them, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And by the way, if you sell the company, with that is considered on the balance sheet as an asset.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I was talking more about stocks, right? Like, as a former Disney holder, right? They transferred everything off of the traditional paper stock, which everybody got, and it was nice and fancy with Walt Disney and all the characters on it. It was a collectible at some point. And they shifted that into this whole digital world now where, it's just a number that sits on a spreadsheet somewhere.
Right. So to answer your question, securities as they've been issued in the United States going back to 1934, they are officially defined. The question is whether or not these new Web3 things, these NFTs, do they fit that definition? It's not for me to say. This has been an argument for several years now. The latest is that with Ripple, it appears that there's a distinction between the two. But again, this is murky legal waters. So when the companies that come out and say, hey, you can buy shares into someone else's community, it was the worst. You couldn't pick a worse time.
What does Forrest say? Stupid is as stupid does.
That is tone deaf as tone deaf can be.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I'll leave the answer to Sabretooth's question very brief. Yes, I do.
What's Sabretooth's question?
Does the panel think that NFTs are still relevant? I think they are extremely relevant.
So I'm going to comment on
too.
I don't think
they'll be called NFTs in the future.
I agree with that, Michelle. I think that NFTs, as they represent a tool that people can grow their business, absolutely are going to be relevant. They won't be called NFTs, and there's definitely a stink attached to that term. But the reality is, it is a way, and Mike, this is your company's slogan, to turn marketing costs into assets or whatever you term it. Like, this is a way to make money that didn't exist prior, and it's because of tech. So
Yeah, and it's about decentralized tech, and I think that's the other side of this. Now, is there going to be a gap or that is bridged using Web3 and blockchain that could lead to securities, shares, investments in company, capital raises? I mean, that's a conversation for another day, but that is all very possible utilizing the technology too.
I'm
Again,
gonna
assuming there's regulatory efforts behind it that are clearly defined with however the current setup is, whether it's class A, class B, whether it's securities, like, whatever type of entity there are. There's a whole different way to look at these things, and that's a conversation for another day. But clearly, these are things that Friends did not think of before they launched this platform and called it shares.
So Eric drops into LinkedIn here, digital collectibles. Eric, I agree with you. Digital collectibles, as we'll call them, and you can say NFTs, you can call them whatever you want. But the question is, are digital collectibles securities? And I'm not going to say yay or nay. I will say this though. I think that the debate will continue. NFTs go away when blockchain goes away. That's my belief. And I don't think
is blockchain going away.
No.
So then there's the answer to the question.
The technology's out of the box. I mean, regardless of what people call things, regardless of what it will look like, the technology's there. And I mean, there's, I don't know, are there any instances in the world where we've had technology to do things that, we can put it away again and no one think about it anymore? I mean, I don't
U.S.
think
government control of flying saucers.
All right. Other than area, what is it? 59 or 51?
So wait, I want to put my tinfoil hat on for a second and say, and this is a real comment now, there's going to be control of the NFT/blockchain and finance world before this thing gets out of the box further. Like right now, the reason this regulatory murkiness exists is because traditional finance, the banking industry, let's call it, does not have control of this. And maybe that was the point of Web3 and in the first place, right? This is Satoshi Nakamoto type stuff. But until that is clearly, the only way this moves forward cleanly is when the banking system has control of it. Now, I'm not saying
let's expand on that for a second, because that's an important point. We talk about assets and digital assets and what's classified as like the whole point of these assets and things being on the books is to be able to borrow against it. Right. Bank of America is not issuing loans because I hold a Bored Ape. Right. That's just not possible right now. So theoretically, it's not an asset that you could borrow against. Therefore, the monetization element of it is specific to one particular market or industry, and therefore cannot be recognized more on a Wall Street level type place. I think that the things like BlackRock are doing, where they're issuing paper on futures of specific cryptos, this is leading in the direction where if you hold certain crypto, ultimately that is an asset that can actually add to your liquidity value, your asset value. You can buy a home at a better rate because you hold this crypto. Like, these are what the assets will be pushed towards as an effort to borrow against.
Right. So this is touching on what is an asset. Michelle, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say that there was one or two companies that were, not to contradict you, Mike, but there was one or two companies that did do margin lending on things like Bored Apes and Azukis and, those sort of, and CryptoPunks probably, but 10% drop in the price and they liquidated people. And that was also part of what caused some of the downtrend in 2018, I think it was.
Yes.
Well, the three of us could start a bank tomorrow, right? We have enough assets. We could start a bank tomorrow and we can collateralize anything that we deem as a valuable asset. But when I say these assets are not recognized, I'm talking by these big blue chip banks.
No,
right?
That's definitely true.
Wells Fargo, HSBC, globally, that kind of stuff.
The other thing I just wanted to say to Eric's comment on LinkedIn that I've just sent to editors a book chapter in a larger sort of content creator book on Web3. I wrote the Web3 chapter and I use digital collectibles as in that, I still talk about NFTs a little bit, but I really talk about digital collectibles in that. So yes, I agree with him that I think that at the moment we don't have anything better, that's probably what it will migrate to more.
I just dropped in the chat over on LinkedIn an article an article from Fortune that I referenced in an article I wrote, I don't know, about 2 years ago, that someone got a $1.25 million loan by using their NFTs as collateral. So there were companies, you're right, in the heyday, Michelle, that were giving money out as loans with NFTs as collateral, and not small loans, millions. So that is not inside the banking system. And Mike, to your point, if we started the bank tomorrow, I don't think we can. There needs to be government permission for that.
No, we can start a bank tomorrow.
That if it
There's
starts to challenge
documentations, like we'd have to fill out regulatory pieces, but there's private banks all over the place.
private banks, that have to play within the rules that the government lays out.
Of course, 100%. But that doesn't mean that whatever somebody collateral, like we would be issuing loans based around a collateral that we define as valuable, right? The government doesn't need to define that. We define that as the lender. Now we can get screwed because we collateralize something that has no value, and that's our fault as the private bank. But when I'm saying, like, in this context, I'm talking bigger scale. I'm talking these global banks, these global monetary systems utilizing the technology as an effort to stay valuable and I guess relevant in the evolving blockchain and Web3 world.
I feel like there's a Sam Bankman-Fried comment here, but we're going to move on. I want to comment
As long as
before we
you're
run
not
out of
talking
time.
about his girlfriend, you won't be going to jail. You'll be right.
There's another story out of CoinDesk I want to raise for conversation. This is called the end of crypto. This new article is about whether the mood of crypto is shifting, right? The point of this show is Web3, and that is not exactly crypto, but I want to comment because it's related. The sentiment in the Bitcoin markets has flipped bullish. BlackRock is, of course, now they're into the crypto ETF space, and PayPal has recently launched or announced they're going to be doing a US stablecoin. So specifically, the PayPal one is really interesting to me because they are not a bank. They are not under the same banking regulations, and they've got 430 million customers who are already comfortable using them. So blockchain technology, whether we like it or not, is pushing a fundamental shift. And I think that people have gotten over the NFT rug pull craze and are starting to recognize, wait a minute, blockchain is different from that, although it enables the NFTs. I kind of feel like we're turning a corner. I'm not calling an end to the bear market, but I do think that the sentiment is shifting. What do you guys think?
I agree. And I said it several different times in many different ways on this program. Like, the people building in this particular time are going to be riding on the top of that tsunami the next time it comes. And the next iteration of it will be more controlled, right? The black eyes and the scars will be dealt with. They'll be recognized for what they were. Hopefully people will learn their lessons on certain things. There'll be bigger players involved, hopefully more security elements that are manageable still in a DeFi construct. But I feel like the evolution of this technology is still very, very early on. We are, and I just made the comment to Sabretooth in the Bolt chat. We are very much at the tip of the spear here, and the spear hasn't shown its full length yet. It's sometimes difficult for people like us who are immersed in this almost 24/7 to recognize that. But then you kind of step out of this little Web3 bubble and you talk to other people who aren't in it, and you recognize the amount of potential that is still very much on the horizon.
To that point, Mike, traveling across the country, so many people I met, and really completely unaware of what's going on in the space. And that wasn't the purpose of the trip, but just as an observer, there's a lot of foot that people are not aware is changing. And I think that you're right. When this thing does finally start to click into place, it's going to be bigger and faster, and people will benefit. I really think if this is done the right way, the purpose of this show is to help people understand how to market with blockchain, the business side of blockchain, as we call it. And I think that is not quite understood globally yet. Michelle, thoughts?
I think the other thing too, if we circle this back to FriendTech, that we had a lot of people who made a lot of money out of NFTs over the that 2018, 19, whatever, 22 time, and a lot of them lost a lot of money because many of them didn't take profits. I saw something the other day where someone said my Azuki I had NFTs worth $5 million and now they're worth $50,000. What happened? But then AI came along. And so this last 8 months, 9 months, all of us have seen that, the crypto bros have turned into AI bros on LinkedIn and Twitter, and now they've got all of those courses. So everyone is looking for what's the next thing where I'm going to be able to make a quick buck from. And I think that part of the formula for this FriendTech thing, which has been, it's in beta, so we're sort of ironing out the things, so that gives them an excuse to be slack about all the stuff that we've talked about. Then secondly, they issued invitation codes, so there was the FOMO, you're going to miss out unless you get one of these, and people that joined got ones to give to other people. That's how they sort of got people into it.
Clubhouse model.
Yeah, the Clubhouse model, exactly. So I think that while I agree with Mike that and you that when we get to the point where normal people, if we want to call them that, actually start to enter the space, those of us that have been here that aren't the ones that get caught up in all the hype and might not have made our millions like some, well, on paper they did. I'm not quite sure how many people took the money other than the rug pull people. But I think that we're going to see more of these sorts of things over the next 12 months, I think, where people just jump on because they think, oh, this could be the one that makes me my fortune and I can, retire comfortably or whatever. But that's not what's going to be around in 5 years' time in terms of dominating the space. So we've got this thing now that's dominating the space. ChatGPT dominated the space at the end of last year. Before that, we had NFTs and all of the marketplaces and OpenSea and all that. So, it's kind of like, it's really quite cyclical, and there'll be other stuff that will come along to try and catch people out and take their money. And as Mike said, people seem to be really willing to throw money at these things and hope for, I guess they're hoping some of it sticks.
So I want to comment on that. This is taking us back to the title of this show, a new business model for social media. Is this actually a new business model? I think it's a bad business model, and I think that it's going to take. People are going to try to make money because they can, just like they did with the NFTs, just like they're doing right now with AI courses. And then when it doesn't work, the pushback on that, the pendulum swings into, well, let's build real community. We're not there yet, but I do believe that we'll eventually get there. Unfortunately, the first step is going to be, how do I monetize my immediate community to make a quick buck?
Do people take advantage of people using websites and e-commerce?
All the time.
Of course.
Every day. And how long has that been around? That's not an overnight fix, right? With any new technology or new opportunity, bad players are going to try to take advantage of that. But again, you take away all those black eyes and scars, that you sift through the fog, there are a lot of good components of the technology that still have yet to be recognized by the masses. And I feel like if we can get, I guess, elderly people to recognize that they can pay their bills using a credit card online or talk to a robot on a phone, implementing a new technology is something that we've proven time and time again that we can implement in society. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when people did not have cell phones in their pockets and people actually had to recognize where they were, make a phone call on a payphone to say, hey, I'm coming home in an hour. Like, these things evolved over time.
Turn up at your grandparents and they were out, so you turned around and went home again.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Somebody knocks on your door now. You're like, who in the hell is at my door?
Who's that?
Before, it was the most exciting thing in the world. Somebody's at my door.
My kid asked me, Mike, when you were a younger dad, did you really go and knock on people's doors to hang out with them? And I'm like, that's all there was, dude.
That's all you could do. That's all you could do. So look, I firmly believe that the underlying variable that we've discussed here today is the technology. However it's used, however it's implemented, that still very much needs to get ironed out. And I don't think there will ever be a perfect explanation to that. But the fact is that the technology is valuable enough to continue to build on. And I think that if we continue to recognize and call out the bad players in this, those will ultimately get weeded out and more people will become educated based either on experience or based on programs like this, where we can just basically highlight certain components of what works, what doesn't work, and why.
In that vein, Mike, I want to highlight the distinction between community building and simply monetizing with a token. This FriendTech is a good idea in terms of it makes an asset where there isn't one. It's a bad idea in that it's just having a token doesn't build community.
Well, how many times can these influencers screw over their people before they don't have people anymore?
Only one time.
I don't know
Well,
about that. If you're a
I don't
hot chick
know. I don't.
that with a nice ass at the gym, you're gonna have a whole big site of audience that will
Well,
pay
hold
to
on a second.
engage with you.
Speaking of, when Kim Kardashian comes out with her next token at some point, and she will, don't you think people are going to think twice on this?
No,
Really?
I
Some
think
people
people are
might think twice on it. Not everybody.
religiously into whatever she does, just
Well,
like
then I think
Elon.
this, right. If you, all right, fair point. You get what you get in that case, good and bad. That's how life works.
So Sabretooth has asked us, do we feel that crypto is central to the existence and success of Web3?
Yes.
Yes, and that's because crypto is the driving force behind Web3.
Here's the problem, though. This is a good distinction, Sabretooth. Crypto right now is not under the control of the banking system, which is why everyone loves it. And I think that it doesn't actually evolve in the way we would like to see until it is. Now, I'm not a fan of what I'm saying. I come from the finance Wall Street world. I just think that when big money interests are at stake, which they are, and they've got the government in their corner, which they do, things are going to change in some way, shape, or form that we don't foresee yet. But I do think we get there eventually. There's going to be a period right now where it's got to come under the control of the traditional interests.
It will, but again, the technology as the underlying variable allows for us to start our own crypto as well, right? And we can bridge it to something that's more stable and then offer value for our token to a specific community. That is the value of what this provides. Yes, I can go print, Mike dollars on my printer and link it to, whatever US, like that's very possible in this Web 1 world. But now we're introducing this new technology of ownership. And I think that's what really is going to drive people into accepting this as sort of like a valued alternative. It's not going to replace it.
I want to build on that concept for one split second, Mike. The concept of what is crypto, this is right out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What is money? Money and crypto in any form of let's call it transactional value is a representation of value, right? What is it? Yeah. I grow corn and you make sweaters and we trade. Yeah. The money represents something else. Crypto is that. Crypto is merely a representation of the value of the community in the case of Web3 behind it. So let's call V friends for Gary V, because that's a well-known example. I can get dinners with Gary, or I can go attend functions with Gary, whatever it may be. That there's value there. I think that the crypto world will evolve into what is the value being delivered behind that thing represents. We know what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin's value is that it can't be printed. Ethereum right now is pretty much the monster in the room for regular traditional crypto. There's value there because the usage of the network is so large. How many cryptos are there? 10,000 at this point? How many coins there are? It's ridiculous.
I mean, infinite.
And we're going to see, an endless number come. What you just said is every influencer and community builder issues a coin.
Now, again, just to clarify that, not every single one of those coins needs a liquidity pool behind it, right? They don't need to have monetary value. They can hold a specific economic function within whatever project or community you're associating it with.
Utilitarian value, we'll call it.
Correct.
Just watch this space for the Web 3x3 coin that's going to come out.
Yeah, why not? I mean, look at Bolt. You can give bolts to people, right? I mean, it's essentially a reward system that you can incorporate and monetize off of through engagement in the community.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not the biggest fan of social media. I think that it is a detriment to everything we know about society. But again, if you're going to incorporate, we've seen the incorporation of marketing. We've seen the incorporation of advertising. We've seen the incorporation of people using it as their personal diaries. Why wouldn't they, monetize those likes and comments now anyway?
Mike, just to say, go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, I'd like to interpret for our viewers that he's not a big fan of social media, is actually he hates it.
But Marc
everything about it.
But Marc is a fan of social media, and here's why. You know the old saying, Mike, and you'll know this one as a Floridian: people don't kill people. Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Yeah.
Social media is a tool. You can use it for good or for ill. Same way money, same way weapons, all of it. The concept of social media, most people are consumers and not producers. But that doesn't mean social's bad. It's just that the pipes are being used in the wrong manner by the people. So I think that if you're a productive member of society in any capacity, social media allows you to distribute that value. There's nothing wrong with that.
Look, from a marketing perspective and a business perspective, again, I've made this point from 3 different perspectives. I did it from the user, I do it from a business, and I do it from the actual platform. Okay. And as a business, you have immediate access to every bit of information you want about a potential prospect or a targeted audience. That is gold. People used to pay millions and millions and millions of dollars to have information that now is voluntarily handed over. Yes, you're buying it, but people are voluntarily giving that information over. I agree with you that most people are consumers, but a lot of them try to repurpose content that they've seen because they think they can do it too. And what FriendTech has the potential problem to be is that everybody in the class gets a gold star. What does the value of the gold star mean anymore?
I'm with you. 8th place trophies.
Participation award.
I think after everyone has sold their communities back and forth and people are realizing that they're just products on the shelf in that community of FriendTech, they're going to want out. They're going to want out. We'll see. All right. I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Final thoughts, final comments. Again, new business model for social media, question mark. I kind of believe that this might be short-term, yes, long-term, no. And I think it's, as always, another interesting conversation. Mike, Michelle, what are you guys' final thoughts?
I think that it will kind of be a bit like Threads. Huge uptake the first week, 2 weeks, and then it fell off of a cliff. So I think that because of Meta and being behind it and, as they add more features, I think that it could be around to stay. I said that previously. But in terms of something like this FriendTech thing, my guess is it doesn't get out of beta.
Threads user count falls to new lows, according to CNN. As
we know.
I believe I called that. Me, this guy right here.
No.
Which guy?
No, I don't think so.
We have historical documentation where I called it bullshit from the beginning. Look,
that's just because you hate social media. It's actually
I
fun
see
to be
through the
on
garbage. I see through it all. This is the headline of the week. There's no doubt about that. And again, there's people that will make money from it. They will be able to take advantage of the hot topic and the hot component of the day, just like all of these courses about ChatGPT and all of these NFT projects that have come and gone. I think that at the end of the day, we circle back to the technology and the root of it. And if we continuously find ways to build on that, one of these platforms that will have that hype will also have that hype for something that is very, very positive and very good. And for that moment,
Mike, the utilitarian value of this tech is so proven.
But again, the people that need to push that envelope forward are not recognizing that value yet. Again, we are still very, very early on in the development stages of this. The accessibility for people, they need that app that makes them waffles, right? Like that has to happen.
Damn, I thought we would get to the end of the show before he said that.
Wouldn't do it. I don't have high expectations for where this FriendTech thing works out. I think that there's still too many red flags that are popping up, the shares being one of them.
But Mike, it points the way that when Grandmaster Flash was introducing scratching and it opened the door for rap, we're there. This is where right now FriendTech may not work, but it's going to be there's a new business model emerging. I do believe that.
Because I think every time one of these things comes along, it is putting something in the brain of someone who will actually create the thing that we do need that will work.
Right. When I think it was Palm Pilot invented the stylus and Steve Jobs moved it to the finger, right? Yeah. That's where we are. FriendTech is probably not going to be it, right? It's Friendster or MySpace or whatever it is. But it's going to open a door because this is not traditional social media. I can do stuff now with my community. I don't like the abusive nature of it, neither do you. And I think that that's why it won't work, but that it will point a new direction for how this will evolve, my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I want to say thank you for all the listeners and the questions, the folks on Bolt TV especially. We are here every week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, LinkedIn, YouTube, Bolt TV. For those who care, there's a Web 3x3 LinkedIn page. We'd love if you could follow it. Please give us a like and a follow. There's nothing for sale. The purpose of this show is to educate folks on the business side of blockchain, help business owners and marketers understand how they can grow their own business using technology in new ways. This is a conversation we do every week. And again, this is meant to educate, help, and point the way. We don't claim to be the gurus. We're learning like you guys are. But we appreciate the fun of the journey. We appreciate the inclusion of you guys coming in every week. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next
week.
Next Wednesday. Peace.
Bye.
Later, Bolt Nation.